All right, so I'm sure you've seen all these articles piling up about CS3D.
Yeah.
And you're probably thinking, ugh, another acronym.
Right.
What is this one all about?
Mm-hmm.
And most importantly, do I really need to care?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, trust me,
Yeah.
you do get ready to dive deep because today we're going to unpack exactly what CS3D means for you and your business.
Okay.
No corporate jargon.
Yeah.
Just the facts and some actionable advice.
I like it.
So I think it's safe to say that this isn't just another one of those EU regulations that companies outside of the EU can afford to ignore.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Right.
Yeah, this one is different.
This one's got teeth.
It really does.
CS3D,
Yeah.
for the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive, has the potential to really reshape global business practices.
Yeah, it's big.
Okay, so let's break it down.
Oh, boy.
What exactly is due diligence in this context?
All
I mean,
right.
it sounds like something straight out of like a legal thriller.
You're not wrong.
Right.
You're not wrong.
Like all cloak and dagger.
But it's actually a pretty straightforward concept when you get down to it.
Okay.
Due diligence is all about thoroughly investigating and understanding all the potential risks,
Mm-hmm.
human rights, environmental, social,
Yeah.
that exist within your own operations
Okay.
and your entire supply chain.
So it's not just about like being green anymore.
Right.
It's about taking responsibility for everything that happens,
Yeah.
even steps removed from your company's direct actions.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
Like imagine this.
Okay.
Your company uses cobalt,
Uh-huh.
which is sourced from a mine in the Congo
Okay.
under CS3D.
Yeah.
You are responsible for making sure that there is no child labor involved in getting that cobalt from the mine to your factory door.
Wow.
Big deal.
That's a whole new level of accountability.
It is.
No wonder everyone's buzzing about this whole CS3D thing.
Yeah, no wonder everybody's kind of freaking out a little bit.
Yeah. But
There's a lot of confusion too, right?
there is.
Like I'm seeing all these headlines about companies scrambling to figure out what they need to do.
Yeah, and it's understandable.
Like what does it even mean
Right.
for my business?
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest challenges with this is figuring out just how far down your supply chain this responsibility extends.
Yeah. How far down the rabbit hole do we have to go?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
What's considered like your problem versus your supplier's problem,
Mm-hmm.
And even if you can map your entire supply chain, which is a hurdle in and of itself,
Yeah, a lot of companies don't even know
they don't even know where things are coming from.
where things are coming from.
Right.
Right.
But even if you can do that, defining like reasonable effort for due diligence
Right.
is tricky. What does that even look like in practice?
Right. It's very vague.
Very, very vague.
Okay, so we've got scope issues.
Uh-huh.
We've got these definitions that are open to interpretation.
Yeah.
And then we have this potential overlap with other initiatives.
Right. So like how does CS3D fit in with existing environmental, social, and governance initiatives? Like how does this fit in with all the ESG stuff that we're already doing?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think this is where a lot of companies are struggling because a lot of companies are looking at ESG as a set of
Yeah.
voluntary best practices,
Right.
whereas CS3D is coming in with these legal obligations
Yeah.
and the risk of serious penalties for non-compliance.
Right.
It's not a simple add-on.
So it sounds like a recipe for a corporate headache.
It definitely presents some challenges,
Yeah.
but it also presents a massive opportunity.
Okay.
And this is really, I think, what people need to focus on.
Okay.
This is a chance for companies to get ahead of the curve and to build a truly sustainable and ethical business model.
I like that.
Yeah.
So I'm intrigued.
Okay.
But where do you even begin?
Right.
How can companies, especially smaller companies who maybe don't have dedicated sustainability teams, even wrap their heads around all of this and start taking action?
The first step is simple. Don't panic.
Okay, good advice.
Good advice. Right.
Yeah.
The next step,
Okay.
take a deep breath and conduct a thorough gap analysis.
Okay.
You need to figure out where your current practices stand compared to the specific requirements of CS3D.
So figure out where you are, what you need to improve.
Exactly.
Seems logical.
Yeah.
But how do you actually do that?
Right.
It can't be as easy as just Googling like CS3D checklist.
I wish it were.
Right.
I wish it were. There is no one-size-fits-all checklist, unfortunately.
Okay.
But there are resources available.
Okay.
There are organizations and consultancies that specialize in CS3D compliance and can guide you through the process.
So there's help out there.
There's help out there.
For companies that are feeling overwhelmed?
Yeah.
Okay, that's reassuring.
Good.
What about technology?
Yeah.
Can it play a role in all of this?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Technology is going to be huge for this.
Yeah.
AI-powered risk assessment platforms and supply chain mapping tools can be game changers for this.
Wow.
Imagine having a system that automatically maps your supply chain,
Okay.
identifies potential risk areas based on real-time data, and even monitors your supplier's performance.
That sounds amazing.
It is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
We're not talking about futuristic fantasies here. This technology exists now.
Wow.
It's here.
But technology can be expensive.
Yeah.
Is this only accessible to, like, large corporations with big budgets?
So while some of the more sophisticated tools are definitely an investment, there are also affordable solutions available,
Okay.
especially for smaller businesses.
Okay, good.
Yeah. And remember, you don't have to go from zero to hero overnight. You
Yeah.
can start small,
Yeah.
focus on your highest risk areas,
Mm-hmm.
and build up your capabilities over time.
So it's about progress, not perfection.
Exactly.
But even with the best technology, you still need people on the ground.
Yeah. You can't automate ethics.
Right.
You can't just plug it in and walk away. Exactly. Building strong relationships with your suppliers is just as important as having the right technology.
Cool.
Instead of viewing CS3D as a burden or a way to crack down on suppliers, think of it as an opportunity to collaborate,
Okay.
work with your suppliers,
Okay.
help them understand the requirements, and even provide them with resources to improve their practices.
Yeah.
This isn't about pointing fingers. It's about working together to achieve shared goals.
It's like that saying, a rising tide lifts all boats.
Exactly.
If everyone in the supply chain is working towards more sustainable and ethical practices, the whole industry benefits, right?
Absolutely. And that brings us to one of the most crucial aspects of CS3D compliance.
Okay.
Meticulous record keeping.
Okay, so prove it.
Prove it.
Huh.
Document everything.
Got it.
Your risk assessments, your supplier engagements, your due diligence processes, so you can demonstrate your efforts to regulators if need be.
So it's not enough to just do the right thing.
Right.
You have to be able to prove that you're doing it.
Exactly. And that's where the due diligence part really comes in.
I got it.
Yeah. And remember,
Yeah.
this isn't just about avoiding penalties.
Okay.
There's a real upside
Okay.
to aligning with CS3D.
All right, now we're talking.
Right.
I'm ready to hear about the upside.
Okay.
Let's ditch the doom and gloom of compliance.
All right.
And let's explore the opportunities here.
All right. So this is where it gets really interesting. By embracing CS3D, companies can actually create a competitive advantage.
Hold on now.
Yeah.
You're saying that complying with this, like, complex regulation
Yeah.
can actually make a company more competitive?
It can.
How?
Think about it. Consumers are becoming increasingly conscious
Okay.
of the ethical and environmental impact of their purchases.
Yeah, they want to buy from good companies.
They want to support companies that share their values by demonstrating a genuine commitment to sustainability and human rights through CS3D compliance.
Yeah.
Companies can strengthen their brand reputation and attract those conscious consumers.
So you're saying it's about turning compliance into a selling point?
It is.
Okay.
It really is.
I like that.
It's about building trust and transparency with your customers.
Yeah.
And it's not just consumers who care about these issues. Investors are paying very close attention to ESG performance as well.
Yeah, they want to put their money where their mouth is.
Exactly. Aligning with CS3D can make your company more attractive to investors who prioritize sustainability and responsible business practices.
So it can boost your bottom line
Yeah,
by attracting both customers and investors.
it can.
That's a powerful incentive.
It is.
But I imagine there are still plenty of companies out there who are like, ugh, this is a burden,
Sure.
right?
Of course.
Rather than an opportunity. What happens to those companies that just choose to ignore it?
Yeah.
Or, just try to do the bare minimum to comply?
Well, the penalties for non-compliance can be pretty significant.
Okay.
We're talking about hefty fines, potential exclusion from public procurement opportunities.
Which can be a huge blow for some businesses.
Huge.
Especially ones that rely on those government contracts.
Yeah, if you rely on government contracts and you can't get them,
Yeah.
you're in trouble.
Yeah.
And then there's also the reputational damage to consider.
Oh, yeah.
In today's hyper-connected world, news of ethical violations spreads like wildfire.
For sure.
Consumers are savvy, and they vote with their wallets.
Yeah.
A company with a tarnished reputation might find itself really struggling to attract customers, investors,
Yeah.
and even top talent.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
People don't want to work for companies that are doing bad things.
Nobody wants to work for a company that's unethical.
Right.
Yeah.
So ignoring CS3D is a risky gamble.
It is.
With potentially devastating consequences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not worth the risk.
It sounds like aligning with CS3D is not just good for the planet and good for people, but it's also good for business.
And that's the key takeaway here.
I like it.
CS3D is not an obstacle to overcome.
Okay.
It's a catalyst for building a better,
Yeah.
more resilient,
Uh-huh.
and ultimately more profitable business.
I am convinced. But I know that there are listeners out there right now who are still feeling a little bit overwhelmed by the scope and the complexity of all of this.
Sure.
So what is your advice
Well,
for businesses feeling a little bit lost in the CS3D jungle?
right.
Where should they focus their efforts first?
My advice is simple. Start by identifying your high-risk areas.
Okay.
Conduct a thorough risk assessment of your supply chain, focusing on industries and geographies known for human rights or environmental challenges.
Okay.
Prioritize those areas and develop targeted due diligence plans.
So it's about being strategic and focusing on the areas where you can make the biggest impact.
Exactly.
Okay.
And remember, you don't have to do this alone.
Yeah.
There are resources available to help you navigate the complexities of CS3D. Reach out to industry associations, consult with experts,
Yeah.
and leverage the power of technology to streamline your compliance efforts.
That's great advice.
Thank you.
We've talked a lot about the practical aspects of CS3D,
We have.
but I kind of want to zoom out a little bit now and look at the bigger picture.
Sure.
You know, I'm seeing some experts calling CS3D a landmark directive that could fundamentally change the way we do business globally. Do you agree with that assessment?
It's certainly a significant development, and I do believe that it has the potential to be transformative.
Okay.
For the first time, we're seeing a legal framework that holds companies accountable for their entire supply chain,
Yeah.
not just their direct operations. This is a major step towards a more just and sustainable global economy.
But will it actually work?
Right.
I mean, can a single directive really shift the needle on issues that are as complex as human rights and environmental degradation?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
The success of CS3D will depend on several factors.
Okay.
The level of enforcement by regulators, the willingness of companies to embrace the spirit of the directive,
Yeah.
and the active engagement of civil society organizations in holding businesses accountable.
So it's not a magic bullet.
It's not a magic bullet.
Right.
It's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
But it's only the beginning.
Okay.
We need continued pressure from consumers, investors, and policymakers
Yeah.
to ensure that CS3D lives up to its potential.
It sounds like we're on the cusp of a major shift in the way we think about business and its role in society.
I think so.
But there are still a lot of questions to be answered
There are.
and challenges that need to be addressed.
Absolutely. And that's what makes this such an exciting time
Yeah,
to be discussing these issues.
for sure.
You know, CS3D is a catalyst for a much larger conversation about the future of business and the need for greater transparency, accountability, and ethical conduct.
Well said.
Thanks.
I think that's a great place to leave it for today.
Oh, okay.
But we'll be back next week to talk more about CS3D and what it means for you in your business.
I'm looking forward to it.
All right, we'll see you then.
Yeah.
Okay, so welcome back. I hope everybody had a chance to, grab another cup of coffee,
Yeah.
maybe a snack, because we're about to go even deeper into CS3D.
Yeah, we are.
So far, we've really explored, what CS3D is,
Right.
and we've looked at why it's really causing a stir in the business world
Yeah.
and all of the potential pitfalls of non-compliance.
Mm-hmm.
But let's be honest,
Yeah.
it can feel a little overwhelming.
It can. Yeah. It's a significant shift for
Yeah.
a lot of companies.
Yeah.
But instead of viewing it solely as a burden,
Mm-hmm.
what if we kind of flip the script?
Okay, I like where this is going. I'm liking the sound of that.
And we examine the strategic opportunities that it unlocks.
So let's ditch the doom and gloom of compliance. And let's talk about how CS3D can actually be a catalyst for positive change.
Yeah.
Not just a compliance headache.
Precisely.
Okay.
The beauty of CS3D is that it has the potential to transform your supply chain for a cost center to a source of competitive advantage.
Okay, so we're talking about like turning lemons into lemonade.
Exactly. Yeah. Imagine a world where transparency and collaboration are the norm.
Yeah.
Not the exception.
That sounds very idealistic.
It does. It does.
But how do we bridge that gap between, aspiration and reality?
Yeah.
How do we actually make that happen?
Right. So it all starts with leadership buy-in.
Okay.
You need champions at the top who understand the significance of CS3D.
Okay.
And are willing to invest the necessary resources to make it happen.
So it's not just about checking boxes for compliance.
Right. It's about making a genuine commitment to ethical and sustainable practices.
So weaving those principles into the very fabric of your company culture.
Exactly. Fostering a culture of accountability.
Yeah.
Where every single team, from procurement to legal, understands their role in upholding these principles.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But practically speaking, how do companies actually start building that kind of culture?
Right.
It sounds like a huge OODA undertaking.
It doesn't have to be overwhelming.
Okay.
Start by forming cross-functional teams.
Okay.
That are dedicated to CS3D implementation.
Okay.
Bring together representatives from different departments. Legal compliance, procurement, sustainability.
Got it.
To share their expertise and their perspectives.
So break down those silos.
Yeah, break down those silos.
And get everybody on the same page.
Exactly.
I can see how that would be like much more effective than trying to tackle this in isolation.
Absolutely.
Like one department's like, oh, this is your problem.
Exactly.
Right.
It shouldn't be one department's problem. It should be everybody's problem.
Yeah, we're all in this together.
We're all in this together.
Okay,
So by working together,
these
teams can identify potential risks, develop robust due diligence processes, and even brainstorm innovative solutions.
Oh, I like that word, innovative.
Yeah.
Let's get into that.
Okay, so let's talk about solutions.
We talked a little bit earlier about the role of technology.
We did.
So can you give us some like really concrete examples of how AI and other tech tools are really helping companies manage CS3D compliance?
Absolutely.
Like in the real world.
In the real world. One exciting area is supply chain mapping.
Okay.
AI-powered platforms can analyze vast amounts of data.
Wow.
From purchase orders to shipping records to create a comprehensive map of your entire supply chain.
Okay.
Even tracing materials back to their origin.
That's incredible.
It is.
That sounds like magic.
It's pretty close.
But data alone doesn't solve ethical problems, right?
It doesn't. You're absolutely right.
So how can technology help companies go beyond just like mapping the supply chain to actually mitigating those risks?
That's where AI-powered risk assessment comes in.
Okay.
These platforms can analyze data from a variety of sources.
Okay.
Things like news reports, NGO databases, and even social media.
Wow.
To flag potential human rights or environmental violations within your supply chain.
Okay.
So this real-time insight allows you to act quickly and address issues before they escalate.
So it's like having an early warning system for ethical risks?
It is.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It's powerful stuff.
But what happens when a risk is identified?
Yeah.
Like, does technology offer any solutions for taking action?
It can.
Okay.
Some platforms offer supplier engagement tools that allow you to communicate directly with your suppliers.
Okay.
Share best practices, and even provide training resources on ethical sourcing and labor standards.
Okay.
So this collaborative approach empowers suppliers to actually improve their practices.
Okay.
Which ultimately strengthens your entire supply chain.
So we've come a long way from the like traditional audit and punish approach to supply chain management.
Right.
It sounds like CS3D is encouraging this much more collaborative and supportive relationship between companies and their suppliers.
It's a partnership.
Yeah.
It's not an adversarial relationship.
Which makes sense.
It does.
Because if they're doing bad things, then you're doing bad things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where the real power of CS3D lies.
Yeah.
It's not just about compliance. It's about driving positive change throughout your entire supply chain.
Okay.
Creating this ripple effect that benefits everyone involved.
All right, so I'm really starting to see the bigger picture here.
Good.
But let's be realistic.
Okay.
Not every company out there is ready to, like embrace this level of collaboration.
Sure.
I imagine some might be tempted to just cut corners. Or do the bare minimum to comply, or even try to hide their non-compliance.
Right.
What happens to those companies?
Well, the consequences can be severe.
Like we discussed earlier, CS3D comes with real teeth.
Yeah.
We're talking about hefty fines, potential exclusion from public procurement opportunities.
Yeah, and again, like, that could be huge for a lot of businesses that rely on those government contracts.
It could be the end of your business.
Yeah.
It really could.
Okay, so that's a big one.
Yeah, and then you also have the reputational damage to consider.
Right, which we talked about.
We did.
I mean, word gets around.
It does. In today's hyper-connected world, bad news spreads very, very quickly.
Yeah. So ignoring CS3D is a risky gamble.
Very risky.
With potentially devastating consequences.
Yeah.
So it sounds like aligning with CS3D is not just good for the planet and good for people, but it's good for business.
It's good for business. That's what I want people to understand.
Yeah.
It's good for business.
Okay, so that's the takeaway.
That's the takeaway.
I like it.
CS3D is not an obstacle to overcome.
Okay.
It's a catalyst for building a better, more resilient, and ultimately more profitable business. I'm sold.
Good.
You've convinced me.
I'm glad to hear that.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We've gone from what even CS3D to how it can actually make businesses stronger.
Yeah, it's a real shift in mindset from viewing sustainability and human rights as like an added expense to seeing them as integral to long-term success.
And that's what's so fascinating about this whole conversation. It's like CS3D isn't just a bunch of rules. It's a catalyst for like rethinking how businesses operate in the world.
Absolutely. It's a call to action for companies to step up and take responsibility for their impact on people and the planet.
But it's not just about companies, right?
Right.
Consumers have a role to play, too.
Absolutely.
I mean, we've talked about how consumer demand is really driving the shift towards more ethical and sustainable practices.
Consumers hold immense power by choosing to support businesses that align with their values.
Yeah.
They can send a really strong message to the market.
It's like voting with your wallet.
It is.
Which brings us to, I think, a really crucial question for our listeners.
Okay.
What can listeners do right now to prepare for this new CS3D landscape?
That's a great question. First and foremost, stay informed.
Okay.
Keep learning about CS3D and its implications. The more you understand, the better equipped you'll be to make informed decisions, whether you're a business leader, an investor, or simply a conscious consumer.
Knowledge is power.
It is.
But it's not enough to just read articles and listen to podcasts like this one, right?
Right.
We have to actually put that knowledge into action.
You got to walk the walk.
So what can our listeners do?
So here's a challenge for our listeners.
Okay, I like a challenge.
Think about the businesses that you interact with on a daily basis.
Okay.
Are they transparent about their supply chains?
Yeah, are they talking about this stuff?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do they prioritize ethical sourcing and labor practices?
Okay.
If not, reach out to them. Ask questions. Let them know that you care about these issues.
Yeah, consumer pressure can be a really powerful driver of change.
It can.
And, don't underestimate the impact of your own choices. Support the businesses that are doing the right thing.
That are walking the walk.
That are walking the walk when it comes to sustainability and human rights.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Every purchase you make is a vote for the kind of world that you want to live in.
I like that. That's a powerful thought.
It is.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the scale of global challenges.
Yeah.
But ultimately, change starts with individual actions.
It does. It starts with all of us.
And that's what this whole thing is about, right?
It is. And remember, this isn't just about compliance.
Yeah.
It's about building a better future for all of us.
Yeah.
A future where businesses operate ethically, respect human rights, and protect our planet.
That's a future worth fighting for.
It is.
All right, well, on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into CS3D.
Okay.
I really hope that this conversation has been insightful, thought-provoking, and maybe even a little bit inspiring for our listeners.
I hope so, too.
So stay curious.
Yes.
Stay engaged.
Stay informed.
And keep asking those tough questions.
Absolutely. Because ultimately, it's up to all of us to shape the future that we want to see.
And that's it for this week's deep dive. We'll catch you next time.
Sounds good.